morning, everybody. We'll just give everyone a minute or two to turn up. We've got quite a good turnout for today's session. So today we're going to be looking at the bookings component within Jadu Central Forms. So we'll talk a little bit about the integration with Office 365. We'll talk about how you can create event configurations within the platform and how you can then apply those within Forms to create sort of appointment bookings, things like that. So the event booking component of Jadu Central relies on our out-of-the-box integration with Office 365. So within settings, if I go to integrations, this will take me to the integrations hub. And then in here, a little way down the list, we've got Office 365 as an integration. If you've got an Office 365 account subscription, this is relatively straightforward to set up. Microsoft should give you a client ID and a client secret that you can input. And then effectively you authorize an account against that. So what most customers do is they'll have a dedicated account to use just for bookings. So the way it works is any calendars that you create against that authorized account then become available for you to use within Forms to manage bookings and manage availability and things like that. So you may create separate calendars for individual services, which is what we normally recommend. And when we look at a form, you'll see that there's quite a few services authorized against this particular account. Full details of the integration are available in the manual, but it's just important to understand that everything we're going to talk about today, the first step is to get that integration enabled. Once that's done within Forms, if I go into a form, let me just pick any form here, go into a page template, you'll see that there is an event booking component. However, before you can use this, you need to create what we call event configurations. So whenever you use this component, it will ask you to pick which calendar you're going to look at in terms of determining availability and pushing bookings into a calendar. And it will also ask you what event configuration you want to use. And what event configurations do is they determine the pattern for the event that you're offering. So if I go to Forms and scroll down a bit, there's a section here called Event Configurations. I've got a few here that I've set up previously. But effectively, if I go in to create a new configuration, I'd give my configuration a name. At this point, I can determine whether it's what we call an all-day configuration. So it would be a case where the customer just selects a day, or you can offer specific slots. So this may be something where it's more of an appointment-based booking rather than just selecting a day when something is going to happen. So it might be something like a callback form where you're just saying, I want to request a callback on this day, but you're not given a specific time, or you don't book a specific time. Alternatively, you may use slots. So if, for example, it's a appointment to go in and visit contact center, you might set up slots, and for slots, you'd then give them a duration. You can set things in here like the maximum number of simultaneous events for any kind of booking. So for example, if it's that all-day booking for a callback and you know that you can do 50 callbacks a day, you can, and 2 callbacks at the same time, you can set 2 as your simultaneous events that you can run, and then you can actually limit the number of events that happen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into some of the configurations that I've already set up so you can see some working examples, and I'll run through how these are set up. So the first one here I've got set up is that, say I've set this up for bulk refuse collections. So what I've done is I've said this is not going to have slots. So it's just a case where the customer's going to pick a day from the days that we're offering. I've limited the number of maximum simultaneous events to 10. So what that means is that on any one day that's being offered, there can be 10 bookings made against that day. So they're classed as simultaneous bookings. So for that one day event, 10 bookings, and then that once those 10 bookings are made against that particular day, then that day would no longer be available in the calendar. I've set some limits here around first bookable day offset and last bookable day offset. So we've said that the user has to book 7 days in advance. If I wanted to allow same day booking, I would just put 0 in there, and that will allow me to book the same day. And I've also set an offset for how far into the future I want to offer dates to the customer. So in this case, I've said that effectively we'll only offer dates up to 62 days in advance. You can change that to be anything that you want. The expiry field here is for determining how long, when someone's filling in the form and they've selected a date, how long that date is kept reserved for them within the system. So if I set this to 30 minutes, if someone's picked a date and they've gone away and they've come back to that form 45 minutes later, they're going to need to pick another date because that date will have been released and may potentially have been booked by someone else by that point. If they come back within 30 minutes, then that's fine. That day will still be available. And then you have options for determining what days are available for booking. So in this case, I've added in periods for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So they will be the only days available within this configuration. And I've basically just set this up as an all-day option rather than having a specific start time and finish time. We've got a notice period in here against the day of 24 hours as well. I'll talk more about these when we're looking more at slots, because this is where sort of notice period, using the slot or using the booking element, maximum number of slots really come into play. But yeah, if I wanted to offer these bookings on a Tuesday as well, I could go in, I'll say this is all day, say 24 hours. And I'll save that. And then Tuesdays would also become available within the calendar. I said we'll come back. We'll talk about more specifics around these in terms of how you can build sort of different periods through the day as well when things might be available. When we look at more specific sort of appointment type booking. You then have some fields here that determine what information is passed into Office 365 to make that booking or to block that time out within the calendar when a booking's made. So in this case, I'm just pushing in the subject. This is the only mandatory field, just so there's an event title when that event's booked in the calendar. So I've just put bulk collection booking. There are fields for location and description. I tend to use these leave these blank at this point because you can pre-fill these with details from the form submission when you configure the form itself. So we'll show you how to do that. If I jump into more of a sort of appointment-based booking, so here I've got pest control appointments. So you can see I have said that we're going to use slots for this and that each slot is going to last 30 minutes. We'll allow 2 simultaneous events. So for any sort of 30-minute slot through the day, we can have 2 bookings against that slot. So say in this example, we might have 2 pest control officers. So, we want them to both be available for booking through the day. I've set my first bookable day offset to 0. So in this case, I'm going to allow same day booking. And I've set my last bookable day to 28 days in the future. So we'll only offer dates within the calendar within that 28-day period. Again, I've set an expiry date of 30 minutes. So if my customers selected their slot in the form and they haven't completed that form within 30 minutes, that slot will then get released, so that they'll then either have to select a new slot, or if that slot's still available, they can go back and pick it again. And in this case, with my bookable days, I've set it up slightly differently. So we've got different periods through the day, and different times on different days where these slots are available. So if I go into one of these, you'll see that I haven't checked all day. And what I've done is I've set a start time and an end time for my period. So these are the periods during which those 30-minute appointments are going to be available. I've set a notice period of an hour. So the way that this notice period will work is if I leave this slot period unchecked, if someone wants to book a slot between 9:30 and 12:30, they will need to make that booking before 8:30 in the morning, because we're saying an hour's notice period, and effectively this is before the start time of the period. If I want this notice period to be related to the actual slot time itself, as opposed to the generic period, then I can check this box to say use slot time. So what this would do is if I want to book my appointment for 10:30, I would need to book it before 9:30. If I want to book it for 12 o'clock, I need to book it before 11 o'clock. So it looks at the actual slot time as opposed to the generic period that we're offering appointments for. You can also, on certain days, if you want, determine whether you want to limit the number of slots that are made available. So I could limit it, even though I could say, I've got 9:30 to 12:30 as my period. I might still want to limit it so there's only 6 slots available during that time. And you'll see with this one, I've set it up so we've got an hour's break between 12:30 and 1:30, where our pest control officers get their lunch. And then we only offer appointments in the morning on a Saturday and none on a Sunday. And then in my template, I've just put pest control appointment as my example for my subject template. And again, I've left the location and the description blank. So event configurations can be set up. You can set them up for specific services. You might set them up with sort of generic timeframes where you can potentially use the same configuration across multiple services, just using different calendars when you create the form. But they should be relatively easy to set up. So if I go into a form, I'm just going to go into a page template on any one of these forms just for now. To add a booking element to a page template in a form, you literally drag across the event booking component, pop your question text in. This is where it will then list the calendars that are being pulled back from the authorized account that you set up in the integration. So you can pick the relevant calendar that you want to use. So let's say, for example, this one's parking spaces. And then you select the booking configuration that you want to use for this particular booking. So if I select this one, for example, when someone then fills in the form, it looks to see what the configuration is for the booking. It compares that against the calendar that you've selected, and it will then, in the form, return appointments that are available. So the customer can select an available time and date. So I'm not going to save this one. Let me cancel out of there. I go back to my forms list. So I've set up a simple form for pest control appointment booking here. So you'll see I've got a page template for appointment details. I've added my event booking component. As you see, it presents it as a calendar. But if I click on this, you'll see the configuration. So I've said, please pick an appointment as my question text. I've pointed it at my pest control calendar, and I've selected my pest control appointments. There are some other options here. Some of these are generic that relate to all of your form components you'll be using. So for example, is this a required question? Does it have to be answered? Do you want to show this on the internal forms view or the public form or both? The one that is very specific to bookings is what we call concurrency weighting. And I will come back and talk about that in a bit more detail later on. But let's just look at this sort of basic booking for the time being. So this form is very simple. I simply ask the customer to pick an appointment and then ask them for their details. So in terms of the user experience, if I go and view the form live, you can see it presents me with my calendar. It will show me all the available dates. Any unavailable dates will be grayed out. If I select an available date, it will then show me which slots are available on that day. So if I want to book, let's say 9:30 tomorrow, I'll select that. I can then go next, fill in my details. Grab a postcode. I'll get my normal confirmation page. It tells me when my booking slot is that I've picked. And then I'll submit my form. And it will take me to, in this case, I've created a custom completion page. But if I go into my forms now, if I go to forms and bookings, I can see here's my pest control booking that I've just made with my details. And this information will also have been pushed into the Office 365 booking in the calendar. So use this as the booking title, and it would have dropped this in as the description. So if I jump back to my form, to show you how I've configured the rule for that, I've got my completion content. So when the user submits the form, I'm going to show them their completion page. And I've configured this to pull in what we call the event ID. So each booking has a unique ID generated for it. So we can see here, this is 369. I've also added a link here to a secondary form that I've created that allows the user to change or cancel their booking, which we'll talk about in a moment. And in terms of passing the details across using a template, you can see here I've got amend booking details, and this template literally allows me to push the information that I want to push into that booking. So I've got my subject, and then I've dropped some variables in here to pull in the user's name and their address. So the reason I've presented the booking number here is if I want to change or cancel the booking, the user is going to need to know this number. So let's say I want to change this booking. I've suddenly decided I can't make that particular appointment, and I want to change it. What I've done is I've built a secondary form here for change or cancel a pest control booking. And on this form, because there's two different things I can do, my first section here literally asks the customer what it is they want to do. Do they want to change their booking or do they want to cancel it? And then I've got a field for them to put that unique booking number in. If they choose that they want to cancel it, that's great. All we need is the booking number. So we would go straight from the request details to the customer details. If they want to amend the booking, then we need to capture the new booking details that they want. So in that case, if they select that they want to change their booking, we'll branch them to a page where we'll ask them for the new booking details. And then I've got two rules built into this form. One for cancelling the booking. So it says when the user submits the form and the customer has answered this question, say they want to cancel their booking, then we're going to cancel the booking using what we call the delete booking template. This template literally just needs to know the booking reference number. And then I've got a completion page. And then I've got a secondary rule based on when the user submits the form. If they said they want to change their booking, then we're going to use what we call a move booking action. So we've got a template configured here where we capture the existing booking reference and then the new booking details from the question with the calendar. When they change the booking, we're also going to pass the details into the new booking, so the customer's details. And then I've got a custom completion page. One thing to be aware of, just generally in terms of forms, I've seen a lot of customers create specific rules for individual actions within a form. It's always best wherever you can to group actions together. So even if you're using the same templates across multiple rules within a form, it's always best to group everything that you want to happen when the customer submits the form into a single rule. It's more efficient in terms of the way that the processes work on the server, but it also gives you control over the order in which those actions happen. So that's just really an aside to what we're talking about today. Okay, so I'm going to change my booking. So what I've got in my completion message on my booking form is basically a link to that new form. So I want to change my booking. Let me just double check what the booking reference was. So I want to change booking 369. So I'll put my booking number in. And I can then go in and I can select a different appointment. Let's say I'm going to select next Monday at 10 o'clock instead. Okay, so before I click submit, I'll explain what should happen. So when I submit this form, what it should do is it should delete this existing booking and create a new booking with a new booking ID to replace it. So if I submit the form, I can see my new booking number is 370. I'm also presenting the link again in this form because it may be that I might need to change this particular booking. Normally what I would tend to do is actually send this, incorporate this into an email to the customer so that they've got a record of the booking number and the link to the form to change or cancel their booking within a email correspondence that they can refer back to. If you're using something like Jadu Connect, you could pass the booking reference into a case, and then you could have a form redirect on a transition that then takes you to the form to change the booking and automatically pass the booking number through in the background. So there's different options. So let me go in and refresh my page. So if I refresh my manage booking page, hopefully 369 will disappear and we will have 370 instead. There we go. So simple bookings where you're picking an appointment or just picking a day, and you're potentially needing to amend or change or cancel that booking are relatively straightforward. Again, if I want to cancel it, let's say I decide I want to cancel this one. I'm using the same form. Let me change or cancel the booking. I want to cancel it. That's my booking number. Pop in my details. I'll submit the form, and then I've got a different confirmation saying my booking's been cancelled. And if I go to my bookings, that number 370 has been deleted. So basic bookings are relatively straightforward. See if we've got any questions coming through. So we've got a question from Kaylee about is there any scope to include bank holidays, Christmas holidays, basically non-working days in the calendar? There isn't default functionality for that because effectively bank holidays, regular holidays are going to be different because this platform's used globally. So they're going to be different from country to country. Even in the UK, obviously Scotland has different bank holidays to England. What you can do is you can block those days out within the Office 365 calendar directly. And then when the form looks at the calendar to determine availability, it will see that those days aren't available. Can you have a mix of bookings in the event where some days have specific slots and others are all day? I've never tried that. I don't think it's possible necessarily out of the box because of the way that the event configurations work. We do, however, have a new sort of flexible event bookings module that we're looking at launching, which is going to be a premium module, which provides a lot more flexibility around bookings, including being able to book multiple dates and have flexible booking times as well. So it may be that sort of scenario would be covered in that new module when it's released. Vicky's asked about, can you reorder the tasks within the rules, or are you limited to the order you create them? If I jump back into my form, let me show you. It's one of my rules. So there's no sort of button for reordering them as such, but you can change the order. So I could say what I really want to do is have my amend bookings action first, and then my show form completion. So you can change the order that they're in just by changing the action and the template that you're using at each step. With some things, there's always a sort of specific order you might want to run things in. So if you're using something like Jadu Connect, and you're generating a customer record and a case, you always want to make sure that you generate the customer record first, so then you can link the case to the customer record when it's generated. So it's always where you've got slightly more complex scenarios, figuring out the best order to add those actions in terms of how they need to be triggered. Sort of group booking by individuals. So Andrew's asking this. I'm assuming this is, there's 10 slots available. Individually, anyone could log on and book one slot, but actually you want someone to be able to log on and book all 10 slots for a group of people. I can check whether that's something that's going to be possible with the flexible event bookings module. It may be something that you could potentially do with something like concurrency weightings, but it might get complicated. So what concurrency weighting allows you to do is basically determine whether a single booking counts as one simultaneous booking or 10 simultaneous bookings. So there may be scope for that. So I'm sure you could probably do it with concurrency weightings. If you ask the user how many people they want to book for, if they select 10, then what it's going to do is it's going to look, if you're using a concurrency weighting, it will look for slots when there's 10 places available. I'll show you an example of concurrency weighting in a moment or two. I'm using an example of pitch booking, but it's a sort of similar premise, really. It's just the idea where you can say one booking effectively counts as more than one simultaneous booking. Kaylee's asking about concurrency weighting as well, so we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay. If it's an event where 10 separate people need to book the same time slot, you configure that in your event configuration. So here I've got maximum simultaneous events. So if I change that to 10, that means 10 people can book a slot, basically. So it's the simultaneous events that controls how many concurrent events we have effectively. So for each slot in this configuration, each 30-minute slot, there's 10 bookings available against that slot. So whether that's, maybe it's a session where people can book onto a session, maybe it's individual appointments and you've got 10 users that will take appointments during that period, but it's all controlled with this. What concurrency weighting is it's saying, my one booking that I'm making will count as 10 simultaneous events. So let me talk about that in a bit more detail. I'm going to go into one of my forms, actually. I'm going to my pitch booking form. I'm going to remove one of my pages for a moment, just so you can see how this works. So if I go into forms, so the example I'm using for my concurrency weighting is a pitch booking. So let's say I've got a sports pitch and I want people to be able to book the whole pitch, half the pitch, or a quarter of the pitch for an hour slot. So if I go into my pitch booking configuration, actually I've set it to 90 minutes. Excellent. So I'm offering 90-minute slots. What I've done here is I've said I'm going to allow 4 simultaneous events. So the reason I've set it as 4 simultaneous events is because in theory, I could have 4 bookings against that pitch, with each of those bookings using a quarter of the pitch. So this is where I'm going to use concurrency weighting, because what I want to do is say if someone says they want to book the whole pitch, I want that to count as all 4 simultaneous slots. If someone wants to book half the pitch, I want it to count as 2 of those simultaneous slots. So if someone's booked half the pitch for a 90-minute period, then the next person that comes along to the form, if they select that slot, it's only going to let them select half the pitch or quarter of the pitch. Hopefully that makes sense. The rest of this stuff is, the same as we've talked about before in terms of configuring, first bookable day offsets and that kind of stuff. So if I jump back into my pitch booking form, what I've got is I've got a first page here for booking details. So on this page, I'm asking the user, how much of the pitch would you like to book? Do you want to book the full pitch, half the pitch, or quarter of the pitch? So in the example that was put in the questions, this could be, how many people do you want to book onto the booking, out of 1 to 10, or in my example, 1 to 4. I have done something slightly different with this. So if I select the show values option, you can see I've set the full pitch to have a value of 4, the half pitch to have a value of 2, and the quarter pitch to have a value of 1. So when I add my actual question page in, I go in and show the booking page, you'll see on my time slot, I'm booking the AstroTurf pitch. I'm using my pitch booking configuration, but I've switched on concurrency weighting. So what will happen is when I add this page to my form, and then save it, before I save it, it's asking me, where is it going to get the concurrency weighting details from? So I'm going to point this to my how much of the pitch would you like to book? I'm not going to point it at the label. So the label obviously says full pitch, half pitch, quarter pitch. I'm going to point it at this question where it doesn't say hyphen label, because this will pull the value through. So 4, 2, or 1. So I'll save that. So what should happen is in this form, when I select how much of the pitch I want to book, it's going to capture a value of 4, 2, or 1. When I move to the next page in the form, when it presents the calendar, it will look at what that value is, and based on that value, it will determine what slots are available. So again, going back to the example that the question was asked about, if I've selected that I want to book 10 people, a slot for 10 people, when it gets to the calendar, it's going to look to see what slots are available that have that amount of availability. So hopefully this is making sense so far. So let's see how it works. So if I go to the form, I'm going to say I want to book the full pitch. And I'm going to book it for 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Just put my details in. So I'll submit my form, and that will make my booking. So if I go back into that form now, and let's say I want to book half the pitch. So if I go next and I go to tomorrow, 9 o'clock's no longer available because the full pitch has been booked for that period. So that booking has used all 4 consecutive slots based on my configuration. If I just bring the configuration back up. So it's used all 4 of these simultaneous slots for that one booking. So let's say I'm going to book half the pitch from 10:30 till 12. So I'll make that booking. And then I'll go back into the form. So this time, if I select full pitch and go next, 9 o'clock and 10:30, neither of those slots are available. Because actually for 10:30 to 12, 2 slots have already been used. If I go back and I select half the pitch, 10:30 is now available because 2 slots are being used, and I'm saying that I want to book half the pitch, which is equivalent of another 2 slots. Equally, if I go back and select quarter of the pitch, that slot's still available. So let's book it for quarter of the pitch. Okay. So in theory now, 9 o'clock is booked for 4 slots. 10:30 is booked for 3 slots. So if I select the full pitch, 10:30 is still not available. If I book half the pitch, 10:30 is not available. But hopefully, if I want to book quarter of the pitch, then there's still a quarter of the pitch left for booking at that point in time. So I can make another booking against that. And now it doesn't matter how much of the pitch I select, that 10:30 slot won't be available anymore. Okay, no, great. I'm glad that's helpful, Kaylee. So any questions about anything that we've talked about today? Hopefully it's given you a bit of a clear insight into the way that the booking module works. As I said, we are developing a sort of flexible events module, which is a sort of bolt-on. Effectively, it's a premium module, which it's not so reliant on Office 365 from my understanding of how it's going to work, but it's also going to give you more scope for things like people who want to book multiple slots, or a whole season, or flexible times. And it's also going to hook into payments as well to help. If you've got, for example, different prices for different times of day, if someone's trying to book something, there's going to be functionality to manage that as well. Well, I hope the session's been useful. As usual, it will go up on YouTube on our Masterclass playlist. So if you've missed any of the previous Masterclasses and you're interested in any of them, they're all available on our YouTube channel. Also, if you have any thoughts for anything that you might want to cover on future Masterclasses, then please email us at marketing@jadu.net. We'll have a look at any suggestions, and anything that people particularly want to look at. We can look at planning in for future Masterclasses. There's no Masterclass next month. We're reconvening in September is going to be the next one. And we'll let everyone know what that's going to be on, and when bookings open for it. And thanks very much, everyone. Speak to you all again soon.